We will now go ahead and complete Excel exercise number 1 together. So first off, we will need to create a new workbook. And we will start by doing that by opening up a new Excel file. A new file is referred to as a workbook. Once we are within our workbook, we will create a sheet in our workbook. As you can see, sheet number 1 is our first sheet in our workbook. We can go ahead and add as many sheets as we would like, but for the purpose of this exercise, we only need to add one sheet. So you will have your file in Excel, known as your workbook, and then you can have multiple sheets within your workbook. So for our first sheet, we are going to need to enter data pertaining to the sales data that we will analyze. So before we go ahead and do so, these cells that go across horizontally are known as rows. So we have row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and so on. And all of the cells that go down the workbook vertically are known as columns. So we have column A, column B, column C, and so forth. So we will need to enter our header data in column B, row 1. The name of the cell is B1, and you can locate it right there, B1. So we will type in year 1 within the cell. The next cell, we will type in year 2. So we have typed in year 1 in cell B1 and year 2 in cell C1. We're going to be analyzing the different cells for year 1 and year 2. Next, within the year, each year we will be analyzing the quarters. So we will type quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. So we now have our year 1 and year 2 headers, and then we also have the description of actual sales data we'll be looking at. So we have quarter 1 that we will be analyzing, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. So now we will go ahead and type in our actual data that we will need to analyze. So first off, we have cells of $39,500 for year 1, quarter 1. We have cells worth $39,000 for year 1, quarter 2. Quarter 3 has a sales volume of $43,500, and quarter 4 has sales volume of $49,000. Next, year 2 sales data. Quarter 1 reflects $42,000. Quarter 2 reflects $43,500. Quarter 3 reflects $46,850. And quarter 4 reflects $51,500. So next, after we have inputted our sales data, we will need to analyze the sales data at this point. So in order to analyze our sales data, we need to total up all of our sales for both years. We need to see the total volume that year 1 has done, and we need to see the total volume that year 2 has done. So whenever you type in a formula into Excel, you will type the equal sign. The equal sign is now telling Excel they need to look at and calculate a formula that you are about to enter. Anything that follows after the equal sign, Excel will recognize as a formula. So we will type the equal sign, and we want to add cells B2 to B5. So we will select B2 and enter an addition sign. We will select cell B3, enter an addition sign. Select cell B4, enter a new addition sign, and select cell B5. Now as you can see, all of these numbers are highlighted. reflecting that all of these numbers are taken into account into our formula. And you can see below, each cell within the formula reflects the same color coordination of the actual cell that is highlighted. So we can see B2 is blue, and cell B2 is selected and highlighted as a blue box around it. So we can also be able to correspond what data has been inputted. So after our formula is done, we hit enter, and Excel will now calculate those numbers for us. There's another way that you can also add, subtract, or apply the same function, but doing it at an easier level. So what we can do over here is we can go to our auto sum. This is the function box where you can actually select the function that you would like to do, and then Excel will automatically do it for you without you having to manually type in your addition signs, your subtraction signs, your division signs. So we will go ahead and select auto sum because we are wanting to sum the total year 2. Remember, quarters 1 through quarters 4 to make up the entire year. So once we select auto sum, it is summing all of the numbers above the cell that we selected the auto sum in. And it will select all of the cells that pertain and include numerical data. So this is why it automatically selected from cell C2 all the way through cell C5, because it recognized that these are the cells that hold the numerical data. And we will go ahead and hit enter. You can also do this by just typing in the equal sign, the word sum, parentheses, and simply selecting cell C2 and highlighting it all the way down to C5. This will now select all those cells, and you are already telling Excel that you would like to add those numbers together. We will put a parentheses to close off our formula and hit enter. Next, we need to analyze our sales data. We can see year 1, sales data $171,000, and year 2 has sales data of $184,050. In cell D1, I will go ahead and type year 2% variance. We are now looking at the percent variance from year 2 versus year 1. In order to do so, we must type in our formula in order to calculate year 2 versus year 1. So in order to do that, we type our equal sign to create the formula. We're telling Excel it needs to calculate. We will do parentheses, select year 2 minus year 1 divided by year 1. So we typed our equal sign, parentheses, selected cell C2 because that's the one we want to analyze, minus cell B2 because that's the one we want to compare to, a slash for the division sign, and selected cell B2 once again. Remember, we are telling Excel to simply take the difference between year 2 and year 1 and divide that into year 1 to figure out where we are in comparison to year 1. Once we're done, we hit enter. This is a dollar sign that it's automatically defaulted to, so we need to change this to reflect a percent. We simply go up to our text formatting and we will select percent to now change this number into a percent. And whenever we reflect percents, we must reflect 1 decimal place. So we will now go ahead and increase our decimal places so our percent will display 1 decimal place. So we can see Excel had it at 7% before. Once we expanded 1 decimal place, it expanded it out to 6.8%. So now what we can do, we can either choose to repeatedly enter in this formula over and over so we can calculate the same information for quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, and the total year. Or what we can do is use our fill formatting. So in order to do so, make sure the cell is highlighted where you would like to copy the formula. Now you need to go to the lower right hand corner of the cell until you see the smaller blacked out plus sign. Once you see that, you can go ahead and select the plus sign and drag all the way down to now fill the formula all the way down. This is referred to as fill formatting. It has now copied our percent variance formula all the way down through the total line. So if we select cell D3 and hit F2 to check our formula, we can see year 2 minus year 1 divided by year 1 and pertaining to quarter 2. We can see the same thing for quarter 3, same thing for quarter 4, and now the same thing as well for the total. So that is also an easier way where you can repeat the formulas if you know you are going to use the same formula rather than having to type it out every single time. So here is a sales analysis for our data that we've used. We can see quarter 1, year 2 is 6.8% higher than year 1. Year 2, once again, quarter 2 is 11.5% higher than quarter 2 in year 1. Quarter 3 in year 2 is 7.7% higher than quarter 3 in year 1. And quarter 4, year 2 is 5.1% higher than year 1, quarter 4. The total for year 1 over year 2 is 7.6% higher than year 1. So for the total year, we have seen a 7.6% sales increase over year 1. So we have analyzed our data. Now we will need to format our data in order to have it ready to present. So we will label this as the total. We will go ahead and highlight cell A2 to A6, select bold, and we will highlight cells B1 through D1 and select bold. We will also go ahead and bold our total line, so select cells B6 through D6. Let's also color the total line to reflect yellow. So we know all of these bits of information are important, but we're putting a lot of emphasis on the total year. We will now go ahead and format a box around this. You can see all these grid lines around all of these cells in Excel. However, they do not print on paper. So if you would like to have grid lines printed on your paper, you will need to create them yourself. So what we do is highlight the entire area that we would like to create grid lines around or boxes around. We will then go up to the border function, formatting the border, right below the text box where you can choose your font and size. So we will select the arrow to drop down to expand all the options for our borders. So we will simply go down to all borders, and this will put a line around every single cell, put a border around every single cell that we have selected. Now we can see there is a black line surrounding every single cell which we have selected. We simply have placed a border around our data. So next, we will go ahead and need to label our data. So we need to insert a row to do so. You simply highlight the entire row or highlight the entire amount of cells that you would like to insert a row or a column in. In this case, we're going to do a row. To make it simple, we will select the entire row, right click on our mouse, and hit insert. Now we can go ahead and type in the cells or the title for the data that we have just analyzed. So we know that the data that we have just analyzed is for the children's boys department 4 through 7. So we will go ahead and label this boys 4 through 7 department sales. Now, in order to center this around the entire amount of information that we have, what we do is we use the merge and center function. So we select the data, highlight all the cells that we would like to merge together, and select merge and center. It now takes the data from that first cell and merges it in with all the remaining cells that you have selected and has centered the item. We will now bold this. Next, we will also rename our sheet, and we will rename this Boys Department Cells. In order to rename the sheet, you simply select the sheet, right click on it, and select rename. After we have completed that, we can now finish our formatting by also selecting a header to input our information. So in order to select and edit our header, we select Insert on the taskbar and select Header and Footer. Now in our header, we can type whatever information we would like. So in this case, we will type year 2% variance to year 1. And then we can also type boys department sales. We can also select the other areas of the header if we would like to put any information on the right hand side of our sheet or the left hand side of our sheet. So now to go back to the view that we were looking at, we simply go back up to the taskbar, select view, hit normal, and it will bring the Excel workbook back to exactly what you may be used to looking at. So now we can also color our tab in the sheet by right clicking and select tab color, and we can go ahead and change the tab color to, we'll go ahead and do this gold color. So now if we add other tabs in the workbook, the boys department cells tab would reflect gold. We have now created Excel exercise number 1. One more step in this, if you would like to print the formulas that we used over here with our percent variances, as well as our summing of the total years, we can simply select the formulas tab in the taskbar, task menu, and we can go over to show formulas and select show formulas. In this view, we can select file and print, and it will print our formulas at that point. However, we don't need to necessarily do that right now. That is how you do it. So we will deselect show formulas, and the Excel sheet will go back to the actual data that we have calculated. Now let's save our workbook. So we'll save it on my desktop currently, and I will type in boys department sales and save. And you are done.